everyone to the May meeting of the Bronxville Planning Board. Thank you for coming out tonight. On our agenda, we originally had an application from 20 Parkway for a project that they had in front of us, but they are not here. And so for better or worse, they will have to go to the back of the line in terms of the agenda. We'll give priority to the folks who are here as scheduled. One item before we get into the overall agenda is that I just wanted to flag that we had posted on the planning board website a proposed set of resolutions that we'll be discussing later tonight. And if there's anyone here from the public who wants to catch themselves up on what's been posted, if you get on your phone, go to the Village of Bronxville website, go to the planning board section, and go to tonight's meeting. The last item is that set of resolutions. It's about a dozen pages long because it includes substantial conditions regarding the Iona project. And that way you'll have a chance to familiarize yourself with that if you haven't yet. With that, let's go over the minutes of our last meeting. Is everyone reviewed? And if you're okay with them, if someone could please make a motion.
So move we approve the minutes?
Is there a second? Okay. All in favor?
Aye. Aye.
All right, we have the minutes of the April meeting. In terms of the order of operations here, I think we're going to ask Iona to come up, give us an update, have the board ask any questions. Then we're going to open up a public meeting. And then we're going to close that public meeting and go into our discussion and actions. That's our typical sequence here at Planning Board. So I'd like to invite anyone from Iona who would like to speak to come on up to the mic and provide us with an update.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Mark Weingarten, partner Delbello, Donnell, and Weingarten, Wise, and Wiedeker. And again, my pleasure to be here on behalf of Iona University. We'll be brief tonight. You're at the approval resolution stage. We've, as everyone else, have seen it on as it was posted. And we just had two comments. One is the condition 1D. We noted that you utilize the 40 decibel level.
This was 1D, not 1B, correct?
1D is in Delta.
Yeah.
It was utilized there as a 40 dBA, which is supposed to be showing the background levels of noise, et cetera, and it was at 45. I think the confusion may be that in our sound study, we have designed the PA system to be at 40 to give us some room to the background noise at the 45. So we have asked we would prefer to see that the level that you would be exceeding or to be under would be the 45 level, and that's why we designed it at 40, so there would be some room to be under there. So
Okay.
that was.
I think for the moment, we propose to note it, and then we'll go into our discussion.
Yeah. I'm just, again, you asked me to make comments, so that was one
Please.
comment.
Yep.
The only other comment, there was a second comment right there again in that paragraph, which is the paragraph we have focused on, is it says that there is a specific reference to the Concordia Conservatory building. We assume that that is being singled out because of the use of that building, and particularly for the noise and how that might impact the particular tenant that is currently inside that building. And we would like that condition to be conditioned upon that tenant continues to occupy that building. If this is going to go on forever, they may not be there forever. And therefore that condition should be there if in fact the conservatory continues to be a tenant in that building.
Okay.
And that's all we have.
Understood.
That's all we have to start.
But can we assume that otherwise, if this is approved with the conditions here, Iona
Subject to the
okay.
usual lawyer's comments of, we'll hear what everybody has to say because maybe we don't quite understand what's in there. It does not look, nothing there seems objectionable to us.
Okay.
Thank you.
Appreciate that clarity. Anything else from Iona? Okay, if not, before we go into the public meeting, are there any questions from the board for Iona?
No, thanks.
Okay, good. So I'd propose then that we open up the public meeting. I'd like to ask everyone to be brief so that there'll be an opportunity for others who are here to also have a chance to speak. And we welcome your Comments? I think as you all know, this is typically a session in which members of the public provide us with their comments. It is not usually interactive unless we choose to interject. So with that, we'd welcome whoever would like to come up to the mic. Please identify yourself and let us know what you have to say.
Hello, good evening, Susan Salerno. Thank you again for all your work on the board. I've been to many of these meetings and
Could you identify yourself?
Susan Salerno.
Thank you.
I've been in Bronxville for decades. And one of the many discussions we've had here is about the noise level. And it dawned on me that perhaps it's not the noise level, but the noise containment, if that is such an idea. Why is it that, I mean, the noise would only be an issue if it extended beyond the boundaries of the perimeter. If it's within the perimeter and it kind of stays there, the neighbors don't hear it, people on 22 don't hear it, nobody hears it. So is there a way, rather than worrying about the decimals, is there a way to contain the noise? Perhaps not have such forceful speakers, loud, like actual loud speakers. Why do people on 22 have to hear it at all? Why does it have to travel that far? I don't think it does. Perhaps the speakers can, I don't know what the configuration is now, but perhaps they can be focused on the spectators. Or, I mean, they're the only ones who want to hear this, who want to hear the announcements. Perhaps it can be just on the spectators. Perhaps rather than going outward from the spectators out into the outfield, onto 22, onto the side roads, it can go inward, or smaller speakers right where the spectators are. That might help. I'm not sure. I don't really know the technology behind it, but I don't see why it has to be so loud that we're worrying about decimals outside of a perimeter. So perhaps that's one solution. I really don't know. As you know, Bronxville is a very quiet area, quiet neighborhood. We like our peace, we like our quiet. I hope Iona would adhere to that or understand that and be a good neighbor in that way if in fact the sound is mitigated only by decimals. In addition, it really would, I don't know if the sound level now will match that post-construction, when sound will reverberate off new buildings, off new sidewalks, off new pavements, could be quite different. So maybe one solution, well, two solutions. One is to think of smaller speakers directed just where the spectators are. And the other is to perhaps postpone the sound installation until after all those buildings are built and also the foliage with leaves, without leaves. A very different environment will be in place then. So maybe those are some things we can look at. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. My name is Helen Mauch. I'm a partner in the law firm of Mincer Mauch, PLLC, 260 Madison Avenue, New York, New York. We are here tonight on behalf of Concordia Conservatory and Don and Carolyn Moriarty, who are here tonight. We submitted a short letter to the board earlier today, together with an acoustic study prepared by Trinity Consultants. At the outset, I want to say our clients are not seeking to completely derail Iona's renovation of the baseball field. They do, however, request that the board meaningfully consider substantive new information that we've just provided to you, and that the applicant adequately mitigate noise should the proposed amplified sound system ultimately be approved as part of this project. Our review of the record reveals that the board failed to rationally assess the project's potential significant adverse impacts. The discussion at the April meeting regarding noise reflected a lack of clarity concerning noise generated by the project. Some board members acknowledged noise as the paramount concern here, and that the sound studies prepared on behalf of the applicant were unclear. So we respectfully urge this board to review the acoustic report by Trinity, rescind the negative declaration based upon this substantive new information, issue a positive declaration, and prepare an environmental impact statement targeted to the project's noise impacts. Why should the board do this? I'm sure you're saying it's late in the process. This application has been before you for over a year. I get it. But project fatigue does not obviate the requirements of SECRA. Even though this application has been before you for many months and there have been noise studies done, those studies were incomplete and inaccurate because what they did is they looked at the best possible noise scenarios rather than reasonable worst case. And what that did is it downplayed how frequent and disrupting noise events may be during each baseball game. One example, the Kavanaugh-Tochi assessment estimates that the duration of moments related to crowd excitement is typically in the range of 10 to 30 seconds. But the assessment fails to account for the frequency in which these moments of crowd excitement would occur. Available data, it's publicly available, tells us that college baseball games are averaging around 12 to 14 runs between the two teams. Each of these runs likely represents an elevated noise event that would occur over the course of a game on average once every 10 minutes. This does not account for other exciting plays that may generate crowd noise. The Kavanaugh-Tochi assessment failed to account for the full acoustic environment of a live baseball athletic event. Trinity, the report that we just submitted to you, determined that noise levels at Stein Hall from the project will exceed current ambient sound levels by 15 to 30 decibels. This is more than 2 times louder than what's currently experienced at the conservatory. And it could be up to 8 times louder. Based on New York State Department of Environmental Conservation guidance, these noise level increases range from objectionable to very objectionable and intolerable. That's the state, that's this 15 to 30 decibels higher than what you're normally listening to. The noise increase, it's not a small difference from the normal background condition, and it represents a significant change from the existing ambient condition at the conservatory, and therefore, it's a significant adverse noise impact under SECRA. SECRA mandates preparation of an environmental impact statement when a proposed action may include the potential for one significant environmental impact. It's a low threshold for preparing an EIS. An EIS is not required when a lead agency identifies.
If I can just ask a question, you're not a presenter here this evening, you're a member of the public commenting on this. How long is this going to go?
I've got about 60 seconds left.
Good.
Yeah. An EIS is not required when a lead agency identifies an area of concern, takes a hard look, and makes a reasoned elaboration of the basis for its determination. This hard look doctrine is not, however, satisfied by simply imposing mitigating conditions. In fact, including numerous conditions has been viewed by the courts. It's been viewed by the courts as an inherent acknowledgement that the project may cause a significant environmental impact. In other words, you can't cure an improperly issued negative declaration with site plan conditions. The planning board's reliance on consultants that relied on the applicant's characterizations and conclusions without actually exercising their own independent judgment also does not satisfy SECRA's hard look requirement. And lastly, the courts have also said that the length of time that one spends before a planning board does not necessarily mean that a hard look was taken. We're asking the board not to ignore the report prepared by Trinity Consultants and this new information, which demonstrates that the negative declaration is based upon incomplete information that underestimates noise impacts from the project. The way to remedy the faulty negative declaration is not by numerous site plan conditions, but rather to rescind the negative declaration, issue a positive declaration, and study the full range of noise from the project in a targeted EIS. Those are my comments.
Good.
Thank you.
One quick question. Thank you for coming. Thank you for submitting the information. I think the question I have is, you're stating that this is substantive new information. I think the board will make a judgment as to whether in fact it is substantive new information. But my question for you is that your client's been aware of this project for a year. We've given them every courtesy and every respect in reviewing this project over this period. Why have they chosen to submit this only hours before this meeting?
I could speculate as to why, and I don't want to speculate, but
Your client's here if they care to
Yeah.
speak.
okay, I'll let my client respond.
Thank you. I'm not going to read my prepared remarks. I'm going to answer that question directly. Chairman Goldman, I appreciate the fact that you have tried to communicate with us. I cannot say the same thing for the applicant. The planning board has asked for information, received it. We have met face-to-face with Iona. We had a very specific list of sound-related questions, and they yesed us to death, and we came up with a memo of understanding where we could both work together, and that's what we have always wanted from the beginning, to be a team player, work with Iona, not fight them. They refused to sign the document that they themselves had agreed was very reasonable and was primarily directed to sound issues. So I ask you, if I had thought at that time that they were going to work with us, we wouldn't have had to consult counsel. They have not. They continue to ignore our questions, so that's why we've had to step in. Does that make sense?
I think we'll accept that as an answer. If council was done, though, you or anyone else can please feel free to step up and provide us
I'm
with
sorry.
any remarks, whatever you'd like. Please.
Michael Lander, 2 Hobart Street. Again, I live in the outfield of the proposed field. I mean, I'll try and keep this simple, but this has not been the easiest process. My feeling is it's going to be Hobart's problem, our street. This weekend, there was a lacrosse game, 6, 7 cars parked on the street. I took a picture of one girl with Florida plates parking right under the no parking sign. The point is, no one's going to pay attention to the signs. People will follow the path of least resistance. I said this last time. I don't know if it resonated. I missed the very first meeting in this process where they talked about the orientation of the field. And again, I know it's late in the process, but I have 4 engineers in the family. I ran it by them. I see why they didn't do it, because it would be a little extra cost. It would butt against the Meyer Center. But again, the orientation is the problem here, not the field itself. If the grandstand is adjacent to the parking lot and where the crosswalk already exists, we're not going to have the traffic problems. We're not going to have the ball trajectory going into my backyard. You can count the balls that are in my field, in my hedge right now. There's 6 today. That's from high school people playing there right now. Imagine what D1 players are going to do. But if the orientation was simply where it should be, next to the parking lot, you're not going to have the girl from Florida who parked on Hobart Street under the no parking sign. People are going to do it. These are young kids attending too. They're going to do whatever. Path of least resistance. I would just like to see why it wasn't approved, probably because there would have to be a little bit of demo or maybe some work adjacent to the Meyer Center, but it is the right way to do it. We're forcing a 1960s design into 2026. So if there is a way for them to reconsider or just please look at the plausibility of having the grandstand next to the parking lot and beeline to the university, please do. That is my one request. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. These others, it's open mic night. Just want to give it one more minute. Please, come on up.
Hi, Julie Clark. Been living on Hobart Street for 35 years. There are over 20 children on the block. From what I understand, or from what I've been told, I did not read it, the traffic study was done during spring break. I am truly concerned about the traffic that's going to come down Hobart Street. I feel that Iona has said they'll have 2 security people checking traffic. That's really not sufficient or fair. I don't know how you can solve that, block off Hobart Street during game days. I learned that there's 22 games plus 3 more, plus more things that can be approved by the town. These things need to go in writing, especially the traffic piece. How are the children of Hobart Street going to be protected? A traffic study during spring break isn't adequate. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else want to give you one more shot before we close the public meeting? So. Okay, good. What I'm looking for here is for someone to make a motion to close the public meeting.
So moved.
Do we have a second? Second. All in favor? Aye. Okay, so I think we're going to go into our discussion of the resolution that's in front of us. Council has helped us prepare this resolution. It's very much based on the conditions that we had discussed in depth at our last board meeting, and we provided council with a summary of that, and they've worked to do that. But this is our moment where we can, if we so choose, make changes. Iona has suggested 2 changes, and we can talk about that. And I think, we can also talk about others. I just wanted to take 1 second at the outset of that and sort of speak to the people in the audience here who have their concerns about this project. And I think what they're probably wondering is, this board has spent much of the last year working with our consultants and council to dig into this project together with feedback from the community. And we've worked with Iona, to improve the stormwater, noise, safety, traffic, parking, and other issues that are in front of us. All the things you're raising are what we've been working hard on this past year. But I think the fair question that may be in the back of your minds, if unstated, is why have we done that? Why have we worked hard to improve the project and turn it into something we could approve instead of simply turning down the project? And I think that's a question that should be answered. Each person up here has their own perspective on why they've pushed this discussion forward as opposed to sort of nipping it in the bud. I can only speak for myself, but I think there are 2 key factors here. One is there needs to be a recognition that there are property rights on both sides of the table here. Well, neighbors own their property and they have the right to the quiet enjoyment of their property, but Iona is a property owner with a very substantial parcel in this village. And it's our job as a board to consider what's fair to all the parties, and in some ways, most importantly, what's best for the village as a whole. And that's the reason you have a planning board, I think, is to consider those things dispassionately. And then in terms of, motivations for working this process and trying to come to this conclusion, I think everyone here needs to think hard about this as a potential use of the property as compared to other potential uses of this property. This is a very substantial parcel, and it could request development that would be much more intensive, either by Iona or by a subsequent owner or developer of the property, than having a beautiful green baseball field that's used for 20 games a year. So we understand the concerns of the neighbors. We understand the trepidation about this change, but I think our perspective has been that there's been a baseball field here for 60 odd years. It's all gone pretty well so far. It's a beautiful little spot in the village, and having it continue to be a beautiful little spot in the village is not something that is causing us the same degree of concern from the perspective of the village as a whole than it is for all of you who've put so much time and effort into reviewing that. And I thought, we should be responsive to those concerns. So any other comments on that before we get into the details of the resolutions themselves?
If it's appropriate, I think one of the things I might do is add some observations about the issue of sound.
Yeah.
Because, we have considered that, tried to take seriously everybody's objections there. And in particular, the study that was, or the letter, more of an advocacy letter than a study, about the noise issue focused on two things. One is the speaker system. And that speaker system is designed to focus on the audience and to have multiple speakers so it doesn't have one that blasts out. We do have that condition on the decibel level that's allowed at the perimeter. And I think importantly in our conditions, we have not just standards for the speaker system, but there'll be testing after it's put in place and after the facility is ready, and to ensure there is compliance. And if there's not compliance at the borders, we can essentially have it turned down. So I think we've got a pretty good approach to the project's change to the sound system. The other thing I think that was pointed out in that letter we received today was crowd noise. But that's not a function of a change in this project. It's a baseball field. There's been crowd noise at games since the 1960s. So I think that one isn't necessarily something that this adds to the facility. That's already a feature of the use that Concordia and now Iona make of that field. So I think we have considered that issue pretty extensively and pretty carefully. And intimations that that hasn't been the case, I don't think are fair or accurate.
Any other global comments before we get into the detail of the resolutions? If not, let's go ahead and dive in. Let's first hit the ones that Council for Iona brought up, and then let's get into any other comments that folks would have. 40 versus 45 decibels. This is in 1D. I'm recalling, and Jim, you can correct me, that in their study, I thought they referenced 40 decibels. You may not have perfect recollection of that. And so, at least for me, my instinct is to go with what they put out there, but let's discuss this first topic. In other words, the 40 rather than the 45.
Yeah, I thought the 45 was the ambient sound level that was produced by the study. And I think
You have that handy just to educate us? I don't know if you do. I know their study had what I thought was a higher figure. That's what I'm wondering, Jim. So what they're asking for is some wiggle room, basically. And we can decide whether or not to give them that wiggle room. I think we hear you on the wiggle room. I think given how hot button this issue has been, maybe above all, I have an instinct to be cautious on this point, but let's put it out there, other perspectives.
This is one of the points that I had actually circled because I think it should be the level of the ambient noise. So I thought it should be 45.
We're hearing a few perspectives for 45. Anyone shouting out for 40?
It should be 45 as well. I mean, that's what we've been talking
We're
about.
veering towards a majority.
Yeah, I'm in agreement with the 45 decibels.
All right, I assume council is keeping the official record of what we're approving here in terms of the resolution? Yes, please. With the changes we've given, yes, okay. But if there can only be one keeper of the pen, I'd appreciate it, and that would be you. Okay,
Chairman,
yes,
I have some more comments around the audio system,
yeah, please.
but they would be more in-depth. And so I guess my question would be, do we want to go through the other items, or do you want to just focus on the sound?
If
right
there's
now?
something substantive, let's hit it. Yeah.
So, to my knowledge, there are no other PA systems in the village right now. Just the one
There's one at the school.
at the school, which operates under its own rules without any oversight from us. And so with this application comes an extra burden, because it is setting potentially a precedent for the village for the first time that we will allow a PA system in that impacts the noise ordinance and whatnot. There can be, again, a
In areas
piece of
under our
real estate,
purview, I
again,
think
we
he's
do
saying.
not have purview over.
Yeah, in planning board territory,
Right.
let's say. I
So,
understand.
Iona has tennis courts, they have a softball field, they have a soccer field, all of which do not have a PA system now. And with this precedent, they may also request other access for PA systems for those fields. And then other private businesses, will restaurants want ambient sound for outside music? Will places of worship ask for sound systems for prayers or whatnot? And so, I take pride in that the process that this board has taken for all various types of applications takes a very common sense approach of reviewing as much information as possible to make that decision. So for signs, we take examples of what the sign will look like and look at those. For renovations, we look at architectural designs to see how that would fit. We've asked people applying for solar panels to bring samples of those to come through. I think it is very hard to make a decision on sound based on two very diverging written reports. It's very, we've had people play sounds in this auditorium at different levels, neither of which helps me understand what the sound would look like or sound like in the baseball stadium. Additionally, I think with the renovations that are approved, the acoustics in the area may change substantially based on the foliage that's planted, the concrete that's put in, a variety of factors. And so I do think from a process perspective for the impacted neighbors, the best process to go through is to approve a sound system is to test that sound system in its exact surroundings. That is how we can decipher what is 45 decibels. I don't know what 45 decibels is. I don't know what 40 decibels. I don't know what the difference is. Versus having a test of the system when it's there to say, as a village, this makes sense or this does not. And so I guess my proposal, again, would be indication that a sound system can be approved for the facility, but it needs to be tested and designed and tested when that facility is complete to assess whether it meets the sound standards that we would want for the village.
Yeah, so 2 points. I think one is, in fairness, we had debated this, I think exact point at the last meeting, and I think majority of the board was comfortable with the idea of doing in situ testing, once it was in place, and that's condition 1E that we have here. I still feel very comfortable with that. But I think the other point is, the council for one of the folks in the community had said that they brought forth substantive new information. Everyone here can make their own judgment. We're not noise consultants, but as a layman, I did not see any substantive new information. I think what they were telling us is that the sound system will make the level of noise it will make, that at a baseball game, people will cheer, which is not a new or, surprising development. And in terms of background information, I think they were actually saying that the background information, the background noise rather, is higher than what had been in the reports. I don't think we're suffering right now from a lack of studies of noise or quality information on noise. And I think, the solution we've come up with, if it turns out that they're installing a system that is too powerful, it will be tested before they can use it. And if it is too powerful, they will have a volume knob and they will have to turn that down. And I think that's what we, had debated and resolved on at the last meeting. It's perfectly fair to bring it up again, but I don't think there's a majority of this board that wants to change that, but other people can speak for themselves.
I mean, I take that noise concern very seriously, but I think the suggestion, I can't remember whose it was, that we test it after, might have been yours, in fact, that we test it after the facility is designed and put in place, and modulated if necessary. I think that's a helpful way to address it. Rather than saying we haven't made up our mind, if this is what you're saying, and I apologize for if I'm mischaracterizing it, rather than saying we're not going to approve the sound system until after it's installed and we see if we like it. I think that's a burdensome approach to dealing with an application. And I think a lighter hand is better than a heavier hand on that.
My only belief on why a heavy hand is required in this is because it will be the first PA sound system we allow in the village of Bronxville.
Understood. I think sorry.
And so that's where I think there is an overabundance of caution to say we need to test it this way because we are setting a precedent. And so what I like to do is I want this application to move forward. I believe the renovations that Iona has proposed fix a lot of issues with the facility. And I don't want it hung up on the sound system.
Mm-hmm.
And I believe we can look everyone in the face in the community, not only for the existing neighbors, but for the others within the community that live in close to the business district and whatnot, that if there are further applications for sound, we have done a very thorough job of understanding what 45, 40 decibels or whatnot sounds like, and that if there is an application, there is an extremely high threshold for us to get comfortable to go do it because of everything that's in.
Go ahead, Tom, please.
Mike, I'm just having a hard time understanding why D doesn't cover that. Not only, once it's complete, but on an ongoing basis. I mean, we're putting, am I wrong?
You're putting a decibel ceiling on and then you're requiring a test.
Right. And if it's above that test, as Michael says, we turn the knob down or they take some other action. But I think they've spent a fair amount of time thinking about, and I don't know that much about sound systems, but it sounds like Iona spent some time trying to think about the most efficient way in having multiple speakers so that you don't have one big speaker blasting it. But if I'm missing something that you're saying, please clarify.
I don't know what 40 decibels sounds like in that field. I can know what a sign looks like. I can understand what architectural designs look like for a house. I do not understand what a 45 decibel.
The 45 is really based upon the ambient noise in that area. So
If you stand in the field there, you'll know.
yeah.
So you could tell me, if you stood in the middle of that field, you could tell me what decibel is around you, whether it's 30 or 45?
Well, they've measured
Measured
it.
I'm saying, I'm taking a common sense approach, again, of saying, I want to hear it to be able to certify it for those neighbors. I think they deserve.
You don't even, I mean, you'll more than hear it, you'll measure it.
But we've hired experts to do this. We're not the experts.
I have a comment.
Please.
Inspector Doyle, perhaps you know the answer to this better than I, but the Bronxville code is very limited on sound. There's very few, if any, decibel levels that are required for neighborhoods to hold. However, there is a rule that generators cannot, at the property level, exceed 60 to 65 decibels.
Correct, yeah.
So not that we want generators, at every property line at 65 decibels, but I think that's something that's kind of, I've heard it, and it's something that can be heard. And I think that setting it at 45 decibels is well within that threshold in terms of in the spirit of leveling the playing field. So I think that the 45 is a good point, and I love the last, be it further resolved, that there's some accountability and some pathway should they exceed that level.
Yeah, I agree with everything you said. I would add that also saying that we have loud events here is unprecedented is a little inaccurate. I have two kids who've graduated and they have the all-night raging party which we do every year with a parade and bagpipes and the whole thing.
We had it next door one year. I know exactly what you're
We
talking
have the
about.
library concerts, which happen multiple times a year, as long as the season allows, essentially. We have the Wednesday summer concerts. We have the high school events for homecoming and all these other things where they bring in speakers, they have multiple trucks, all allowed to do whatever they want. We have like even the holiday ones, like in the fall. We have Park Avenue concerts. We have holiday events in the village. We have sidewalk days where we don't moderate this at all. We have the rooftop at Fogarty's, which has its moments. I live a block away. We have Underhills with live music, completely unregulated, with amplification and a piano that's basically on the street. So to say that this would be the first and an unprecedented event, and that doesn't even count all the high school sports events and middle school that we have. So I think that maybe that was a bridge too far to say it's unprecedented.
In
So-
terms of the planning board action, though.
But, so again, the school operates under its own island. We have no jurisdiction over that, to
Oh,
be
yeah, third of
clear.
the things I called that were the
So so those are all outside of our precedent. And all those other artificial sounds that you talk about, parties or whatnot, people can call those into the police and make a complaint, and the police come and stop it. With this approval, you would be allowing them under no jurisdiction, the police cannot stop that because they've been pre-approved. All of those events, the police can stop those, and they do because of complaints.
They're staying at ambient levels, which is what we've contracted. We've written this in here, 1A, A through E, D and E is specifically. Then I
I think, Mike,
I know.
I just don't think there's a majority here. I
I
appreciate
wanted
you
to
bringing
make,
it up.
I wanted
I
to
just
make a
don't think there's
statement, and that's why I
majority.
said I would.
Appreciate it.
And so, and if others want to vote other ways, then that's perfectly fine. I just wanted it to be on the record.
Yep, appreciate that. So what I'd propose, do you want to make a motion on that before we keep going, or?
I think after we finish the conditions,
Okay,
I
let's
may
do
make
that.
a motion.
That's fine.
And then we can,
There's always time. Go ahead.
The conditions header, conditions.
The typo? We're going to blame Jim for that one. There's a typo in the word conditions. On this page, there's a typo in the word conditions that my attorney friend here noticed. Once it's done, it will be perfect. And then the other request from the applicant was that the provision regarding specifically the Concordia Conservatory building, which is getting called out, would only apply for so long as Concordia Conservatory is there. If there's a new tenant that is not as sound sensitive, should they have a separate call out is the question they raised.
I personally think that change is unnecessary because if there's a 45 decibel limitation at the perimeter of the stadium complex, if it doesn't add anything to say that the PA sound won't exceed that level at the Concordia Conservancy, because that's
So does that
outside the
leave you
perimeter.
inclined to go ahead and just leave it in?
I'm happy to change it, but I think it would be, well, no, actually,
You could put it the building name.
It just seems to me, it's like saying, you can't be beyond 45 decibels at the perimeter. In addition, you can't go beyond the perimeter at Concordia and go above 45 degrees. So it just doesn't seem like a.
I think it was added by council for emphasis because it was so important to us.
Yeah, I'm happy with that, but I think limiting it to only when Concordia Conservancy is in that building makes it sound like you can have above 45 decibels in that building once they're gone, but that, I just don't think.
Since it sleeves out of our vest, can council live with it as is? I understand. I understand. So you're not going to give that to me and we'll just do it over your objection. Okay, I understand. I'm with
The
you.
building is called Stein Hall, though, correct? Can we just call it Stein Hall?
Let's make that revision, please. Inside Stein Hall, instead of the Concordia Conservatory
Any
building.
use for Stein Hall in the future?
Let's do that.
Stein Hall.
Thank you.
For the purpose of this sound.
Okay, other changes not suggested by the applicant. The floor is open. Got 13 pages of these, come on.
Well, there was one about the time, on 14.
Yeah, and I think, Jim, you had a question on that.
Yeah, again, I worry about us having too heavy a hand on private use. And it seems like if we allow people to play pickleball and tennis in the village and some residential areas starting at 8 a.m., I'm sort of okay with 8 a.m. for a baseball field.
Yeah, and I live on Garden Avenue, and I mistakenly said at the last meeting that I thought it was 9 o'clock a.m. at Garden, and I was wrong.
Okay.
So it's open for debate as to whether it should be 8 or 9, because that was my
I think it
fault.
makes sense to align with the rest of the policies.
It goes with what you were saying about precedent in the village.
Right, so if it's 8 a.m., then I would.
I'm sure
use
the
8 a.m.
applicant will have no objection. Everyone okay with the concept?
Yes.
And that's just practices, the games will be in the afternoon. We will not be waking the neighbors with a PA system at 8 in the morning.
Right.
Other changes before I think we give Mike a chance to propose his resolution?
There was a question, I guess.
What number?
Number 9. We cross-reference the Concordia Conservatory, Kavanaugh Tucci, December 17th, 2025 submission. Rather than cross-reference another document, can we summarize the key elements from that here? Or is it just too lengthy?
I'm recalling the memo. I think it's extensive. He's asking whether we should pull in the individual conditions or just reference the memo. And in general, in these cases, we reference the memo because it's much more complete than any pull in.
It was detailed, okay. Yeah, I was trying to remember.
And that way it makes it more complete. We pull in the whole memo as opposed to a limited set of conditions.
Right.
I'm not an attorney, but I think what we approve is more powerful if we pull in the full.
And if there's any inconsistencies introduced by trying to summarize it, you've created a problem. Yeah. Yeah.
So would that be an attachment to this? once it's complete? Would you make that an addendum then, so that people could reference it directly? This is going to be out in public.
Yeah, this is referencing probably 100 documents, all of which are in the public
Okay,
record.
fair enough.
And they're all on the website, so.
As is this resolution. If there are no others, Mike, is there a resolution you propose to change any aspect of this before we have a motion to approve it as council currently has it stated?
I think I would make a motion to remove condition 1, that there is no approval of a sound system at this stage. The rest of the application would be approved as is, would be my motion.
Yeah. Is there a
The
second?
rest of the application or the condition?
The rest of the conditions and the
Right.
set on the application
so-
would be
So the motion on the table is that we approve this without, in effect, approving the sound system and remove condition 1. That's the proposal. Is there a second for that resolution? Not, we will note the resolution. Thank you, Mike, for making it, and we will proceed. What I'm looking for now is a resolution to approve this application under the set of conditions in the as amended set of resolutions that we have in front of us. Do we have that motion?
I move that we approve the set of conditions before us with changes to section 1D that changes the decibel level from 40 to 45 and changes the reference to the Concordia Conservatory building to Stein Hall, and a change to item 14 to change the earliest hours of operation from 9 a.m. to 8 a.m. I'm sorry, you're exactly right, yeah. I move we adopt the
Yeah, the heading is the resolution.
resolution before us with, and then those changes that I mentioned.
Okay, do we have a
Thank you.
second for that motion?
Second.
Any discussion before we vote? The 5 of us will be voting, sorry, Liz, but you're an alternate. Tonight, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Thank you. And so it is approved by a vote of 4 to 1. I think, Richard, you were a yes?
I think I'm actually the alternate tonight, and she's the voter.
I messed up, so what's your vote, please?
Food.
Okay, thank you. It was 4 to 1. I just had it wrong. Thank you for the appreciated correction. Our next meeting, we're changing from Wednesday, June 10th to Tuesday, June 9th. And thanks to everyone for coming out to it.
No, the other way around.
20 Parkway is here. Okay, thank you for that heads up. We have one more item of business to go through. So for those who are here for Iona, you're welcome to stay for the exciting discussion of 20 Parkway, but we'll understand if you choose to leave at this time. Thank you. Thank you all. Thanks, Christina. Okay, we'd like to invite 20 Parkway up to the mic. Sorry you had to wait, but I think as you know, the early bird gets the worm, and here we are.
Hi, everybody. I'm Lauren Krause. I'm the owner of 20 Parkway. Thank you for your time tonight. I'm here tonight. If you had a chance to brief my memo, our zoning variance expires on May 28th this month, and we had a planning permit that expired in November 27th of last year. I'm here today to request the alignment of all of the dates in our application for zoning, planning, and buildings so that we have a clear path forward to construction without any procedural disruptions. I'm also excited to report that we've had a massive amount of progress. What I've illustrated in the memo that you received, which is already outdated, is some of the progress to date so that you can see the velocity that we're moving towards really starting this project. Right now, we're rounding third base with asbestos remediation. The only delay right now is with the rain. The roof is the final item that has to be completed. So my licensed contractor confirmed that next week it would be completed. Per Kevin Doyle, we updated all of the architectural drawings, the mechanical engineering and planning drawings, as well as the drainage design drawings to reflect 2025 building code standards. So that has been submitted. I had to reforecast bids from the contractor. and rework with our underwriting partner as a response to that request, but that's in progress. The application for the condo status, since these will be condos, these have already been submitted to the Attorney General. They've already given their soft approval. We're expecting firm approval in the next week or so. In terms of assembling a team to help me administer the project, I've already appointed a project manager to help me with oversight of the project. To date, we've submitted the building application and demo application. I think everything that was requested is comprehensive and complete, with the exception of the county plumber to terminate village sewer and drain system and the electrician to provide temporary power. I wasn't able to do that because my vendor needs power and water for the asbestos project, so that will be forthcoming. And then finally, hard copies of utility sign-offs for water, gas, and electric. But aside from that, we are well underway.
So a couple questions.
Sure.
One reason we put deadlines on these projects is circumstances in the village change. We just don't want to sort of write a blank check
Right.
as we approve these things. And this has taken longer than I think anyone would have expected. I think we
Yes,
all
me included.
like what you're trying to do here,
Right.
and that's why this did receive approval initially. But I think we don't want to be that blank checkbook. So is there a date by which you can commit to starting demolition if we're going to approve this?
Well, the way I see it, the goal is to start this summer because I'm applying for a construction loan. They're going to give me draws. So I have to hit all of the underwriting requirements, which based on what's been conveyed to me, I have no reason to believe we won't hit those. So it should be this summer.
Okay, but having said that, our inclination may be to put this on a fairly short fuse and give you a date by which you need to start demolition, or you're going to be back here
Right.
again.
Right.
So if we approve September 30th, are you going to be back here again
September 30th, I
to
don't.
start demo?
Yeah, to start demo, no, I don't suspect I will be back here again if you extend to September 30th.
So I'll open up for other questions. That was mine.
Is there a tenant in the unit anymore, or are they out?
No, there is no tenant in the unit. I just walked the property today. There's some, a missing wall because the asbestos vendor had to break through the walls. I would call it unlivable condition. So right now I have an asset that's non-producing, can't be occupied. That's what it is.
When was the tenant, when did the tenant vacate the property?
They moved out March 30th.
Oh, a year. Oh, no,
No,
March
no, no.
30th
This
this
past
year.
March 30th. Mhm. They moved out March 30th. And I would have commenced asbestos remediation right away. And this, excuse my novice experience with doing this, I didn't appreciate the lead times to get certain permits to perform each and every task that goes with all the components of a building. So part of this is my own learning curve. Not to make this personal, but I'll just say it. I had a surprise baby last July that added a bit of a lead time to my life. I wasn't planning for that.
Did you get a permit?
From my husband, I needed a permit. My husband said we were a family of 4 about 50 times. And I said, well, we're a family of 5 now. So he was actually the one that attended the zoning meeting on my behalf, or I would have been here. But I didn't want to deliver on Delta, so yes.
Sorry.
Yeah, please.
Is there a condition from the bank that before they will give you the loan that they need stamped approved drawings from the Village of Bronxville?
We have the approved drawings from the village. I mean, there will be conditions on any loan, but based on what they've illuminated, I really don't foresee any issue.
They don't require, because at the end of the entire process, the plans get approved, but then there's, the contractor that has to submit, and there's,
Right.
The walkthrough with the inspector and some things that happen, and then the plans are kind of approved, stamped by the building department, And that's usually what the bank is requiring. It just takes
Right.
time, is the
Right.
only thing.
Right. The draws will be concurrent with every time a new draw is issued or before preceding a draw being reissued to me, they're going to have someone come out and inspect quality of work, the cadence, the structure to make sure that I'm compliant with the drawing. So we will have a thought partner in the bank through the whole process. We're also working with Orange Bank, who I would say is hyper-local, specializes in multifamily, and I would say in terms of like portfolio, this is kind of their bread and butter.
Any other questions before, my instinct is to, provide an extension, but not a forever extension. Maybe it's Halloween. But, I feel like, there needs to be some sort of deadline. Any other opinions around here as to how we should handle?
So when we give an extension, is that a date to start demolition and a date to complete? So 2 dates, or we?
I think it's only one date. I think it's just. So Mike's right and I'm wrong. It's not the first time. So we need to decide on both of these. What were the dates? So we gave them 18 months. So that would, if we go with Halloween, it would be October 31st, I was suddenly going with Halloween. And then April 30th, 2028.
Okay.
So the permit is good for 2.
Yeah. We can't be shorter?
And also extend the permit.
But if it's 2-year permit, do we need to do anything? So October 31st, 2026 and October 31st, 2028. Does someone want to make that motion?
So move.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Good luck.
Thank you. And just to clarify, October
No
3rd
new babies between here and.
Trust me, we made that scientifically impossible. October 31st, 2026 is the commence date of demo.
Just knock down something and
I'm
you're
gonna
good
knock,
with
yeah,
it.
Oh,
completed.
completed.
Yeah, no, it's got to be completed by
Okay.
October 2028, but
Oh, no, the demolition.
Demolition.
demo has to be completed. If they've knocked down half the house, they're not okay? Started.
Started, okay. And is it
Do
necessary?
you own a crowbar?
I do. I'll be
Okay.
the first to take a swing, trust me. Do you need me to return for zoning? Because my zoning,
Yeah, we have no
Okay.
jurisdiction.
okay, okay. Okay, all right, thank you.
Okay, now, a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Jim. Thank you, Christina. Thank you, Kevin.